Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. As you know, we're here to talk about how data can influence recreation management decisions, and more specifically, I'm here to discuss how data and management form their own little circle of life in the decision to designate campsites in the Crested Butte Valley. Speaking of circles of life, allow me to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Nick Catmur, and I've lived in the Crested Butte Valley since a pretty young age. Yeah, that looks about right. I left for a little while to attend college at the University of Utah. I came back after that. I left again in my 20s to go out east, and while it was beautiful, I quickly returned home again. While it's always easy to come back to Crested Butte for its beauty and recreation opportunities, this time I was also drawn home by an opportunity to work for a new organization known as the Crested Butte Conservation Corps, or CBCC. Established in 2017, the CBCC was founded on a goal of stewarding the Crested Butte backcountry through trail maintenance, education, outreach, and camp area cleanup. While working for the CBCC, I started to notice that the booming popularity of recreation, mostly in the form of dispersed camping, was beginning to take a toll on the backcountry. Some of my observed impacts included a drastic increase in illegal, user-created routes, mostly as a result of people searching for new camping areas, a disregard for regulations set in place to protect sensitive environmental areas, a serious proliferation of human waste and trash on the landscape, residential use of the forest beyond the 14-day limit, as well as escaped and unsupervised fires, soil erosion, and a significant decrease in vegetation cover. And in case you're wondering, yes, that's me shoveling quite a bit of poo. Upon seeing these impacts, I knew something needed to change, and I wanted to be a part of making that happen. Thankfully, I wasn't the only one making these observations and hoping for a change. The local Forest Service had been collecting similar data and making the same observations regarding these impacts for years. And despite previous attempts to indirectly manage camping, these impacts were only getting worse. The attempts included trying to manage camping through travel management by reducing the distance one can drive off-road for the purpose of camping from 300 feet to 30 feet, by designating specific spur routes for people to camp off of, and by simply placing more signage. Unfortunately, these were not very successful. However, the Forest Service now had even more observational data thanks to the CBCC, observations that were widely publicized. By sharing this data with the county-wide stewardship organization known as the Sustainable Tourism and Outdoor Recreation Committee, or STORE, the Forest Service knew they could harbor broad community support in pushing for a comprehensive management change. And in 2019, with the data and visuals provided, the STORE committee voted unanimously to allow the Forest Service to move forward with their proposed solution. That solution was, of course, to designate campsites. This meant that the Forest Service would be designating over 200 sites across more than 100,000 acres and 6 major drainages surrounding Crested Butte. To break it down, that's 43 sites in Slate River, 48 in Washington Gulch, 36 in Kebler Pass, 41 in Brush Creek, 28 in Cement Creek, and 15 in the Gothic area. Now you might ask how and why they would do this. First, the why. By designating specific campsites, you still allow users the remote backcountry feel of dispersed camping, but you isolate the negative impacts to specific and sustainable locations. You also improve user experience by decreasing overcrowding issues, and you create a black and white management strategy that makes this easier moving into the future. Now the how. This project is no small task, and the Forest Service certainly needed partners to accomplish it. They looked to the Crested Butte Conservation Corps and Western Colorado University in finishing this project. Now, the project began in 2019, and as a result, I am not the first MEM student to be a part of it. Former student Jennifer Fenwick took on the initial work of this project as her master's project as well. Working with the Forest Service Recreation Officer Aaron Drendel, She mapped each individual site, generated maps for each drainage, created the regulatory graphic to be displayed alongside these maps at the entrance to each drainage. She also generated the initial sign plans for Slate River and Washington Gulch, and she oversaw the initial implementation of infrastructure. This is where I also joined the project, as her and I helped oversee the CBCC in installing that initial infrastructure. Moving forward, I continue to work alongside Aaron Drendel as I continue to oversee implementation, inventory road improvements, develop a communication plan, and develop a recommended management and operations strategy. Delving further into my role with this project, let me describe the implementation process. First, each site has its specific needs, including a fire ring, a numbered site post to describe the location of where they are. For example, SR2 means the second site in Slate River. Barrier work to prevent further vehicle travel, which is sometimes a simple fence such as this, and other times the placement of large boulders. And finally, road signage that will make visitors aware of the new regulation and also direct them to campsite locations. In 2020, we accomplished this infrastructure implementation in Slate River and Washington Gulch. This summer, we will be doing it in Brush Creek, Kebler Pass, and Gothic in an attempt to finish the project by the time the snow blankets the ground in October. Now, to ensure project sustainability into the future, I was asked to take on a few things. First off, I drafted a detailed implementation schedule that shows the remaining needs for each drainage. I also identified the remaining materials and the associated budget required to finish the project. I outlined necessary road improvements for the Forest Service to undertake to improve access to certain sites, and I also mapped out specific things, such as the location of every single road sign using Google Earth so that the CBCC crews could act autonomously without always having me around. Communication of this project is vital to its success, which is why I was happy to generate a communication plan. My plan involves educating local businesses and their employees about the changes, developing new web content for camping in the Crested Butte Valley to be hosted on local organizations as well as the Forest Service, outreach through local media including newspapers, radio, and magazines, outreach through external media to ensure that we hit visitors coming from out of state and the Front Range. Some of the successes here include articles being published on the Colorado Sun, Out There Colorado, and singletracks.com websites. I've also developed a plan for on-the-ground outreach to be utilized by Forest Service employees and other conservation corps active in the valley, including the CBCC and the Store Corps. And finally, I've reached out to third-party apps and asked them to update their information about the area to display the designated camping regulations. Lastly, I put together a recommended annual operations plan and adaptive management strategy to help ensure the success of this project now and into the future. For my annual operations plan, I made the following personnel recommendations. Forest protection officers to help enforce the new regulations, campground field rangers who are essential in monitoring for the adaptive management strategy, as well as maintaining and cleaning facilities, and also campground hosts who can easily ease the tension on the previous two positions. My operations plan also included a budget for these positions, as well as their necessary supplies, and a schedule for the campground field rangers to follow in facilities maintenance and cleaning. Now, my adaptive management strategy includes monitoring schedules, threshold limits, and associated management actions for the following: campsite occupancy, vegetation regrowth, invasive weeds, and the presence of human waste and trash. While this strategy emphasizes the importance of taking new management actions when threshold limits are hit, it also ensures the collection of more data, which can help inform future management strategies, which can ensure that the Forest Service will be very prepared to take the next step in this project, which might include adding new amenities in order to charge a fee and to set up a reservation system for these designated campsites. So where to from here? Well, I for one feel we should always be looking to the future. And while I know my role in this project will come to an end this summer, looking long term, the project is far from over. There's much more to come. Perhaps even another MEM project. Who knows? But as I said at the start, I truly feel that data and management have their own little circle of life. And I feel that in our ever-changing world, that we as land managers should always be looking to the latest data to drive new management changes. As no management strategy deserves to be stuck in the 80s. Thank you.